Hi everyone, welcome to Old Lady Reacts. I'm the Old Lady and this is my reaction channel where I react to action and superhero movies that I'm viewing for the first time in order to understand the inside jokes and references in my ultimate viewing of WandaVision. I'm watching all the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies in the order in which they were released, and today we interrupt our regularly scheduled programming to bring you this special wrap-up of Phase 2 to show you my ranking of the films so far, all the films I've reacted to, not just the Marvel movies. So let's talk about my thoughts on the MCU kind of through the end of Phase 2. So as I said at the end of Phase 1, I continue to be impressed by the ingenuity and creativity of like the overall concept of the movies and how they're all tied together. The energy sources, the SHIELD, Hydra, government control, secret projects, the continued attempts and failures to recreate the super soldier process that worked for Captain America. And now, of course, starting to touch on AI and sentience and then, whatever vision is. I guess we'll find out more about that soon. So it's funny because before I started this channel, I had no idea the stories were so interconnected in this way. I think people who don't watch superhero movies, they don't have any idea. And it really is an amazing feat of storytelling. These are they're enormous concepts. They're big, meaty subjects that require a lot of thought and careful kind of knife edge representation on film that, if told wrong, they could really collapse under the weight of their own exposition and then all the explanation necessary to make everything clear to viewers. But the way the story has built from the kind of simple politics and consequences in Iron Man and then kind of slowly layered on more and more complicated issues as it's gone along, it makes everything make sense. It makes you want to keep watching and figure out where else they're going to go with all of this. It's nice. There are no simple black and white, you're a foreigner so you're a villain tropes in the MCU. They easily could have villainized Asian or Middle Eastern characters or made up like a group of beings that represented otherness in some way. We've seen that a million times in movies, and it would not have been sustainable for this many films. From the get-go, the phrase, I forget who said it, I think it was Tony Stark, we make our own villains, that really has been the guiding force in the entire MCU so far. The villain in all the MCU stories is greed and power. And it's a smart choice because that shit is universal. There are countless iterations. You can play with that all day. What I'm hoping to see in the next phase of the MCU is more women. Obviously, I'm a woman. I want to see myself represented on screen. More female heroes for sure, but also more female villains, which we haven't had yet at all. Other than Catwoman, which is DC, so she doesn't count in this. Very few of the MCU movies so far have passed the Bechdel test, but even those that do, they do so by a pretty thin margin, which is weird because, Disney is like the king of great, unapologetic female villains with very non-sympathetic backstories. It's one of the reasons I love Disney. Cruella de Vil, Maleficent, Ursula. Cruella de Vil wants to kill puppies and make a coat out of them for no other reason than that's what she wants. That's legendary. Come on, it's awesome. But in the MCU, even when there are non-human characters, good or evil, even minor ones, a vast majority of even those characters present as male, even though they're not even human. So I'm glad I watched Black Panther and Guardians at the beginning, but I think that they gave me a bit of a false sense of security as to how much actual diverse representation there was going to be. Black Widow's amazing. I love her. She's great. And now Wanda's been added to the mix, and I see more Black characters and maybe some queer characters coming into play. But they should have been there all along. It shouldn't be, it shouldn't be a surprise. Oh, now there's a woman, and now there's a queer character, And I know that that's not important to everyone, but it matters to me, and I think it would honestly broaden their audience more and also help them become more respected as films and not just movies. So let's bring up the ranking, and I can show you my thoughts on how I think the movies stack up against each other for me, and y'all can shout at me how wrong I am. Do that all you want. So as you can see, bottom tier 6 is blank. It's funny, but I haven't really actively hated anything I've watched so far. Tier 5 has a few entries, which should come as no surprise if you watched my reactions to the Hulk and the Thor movies. They really did nothing for me. I think they're worth watching as a chapter in the overall MCU, but it didn't really thrill me at all. Tier 3 and Tier 4, I keep going back and forth between whether or not I need both tiers here, and some movies have moved back and forth between the two tiers. I think this is where a vast majority of the films are going to land in the end anyway. Tier 3, I think Tier 3 and above is generally positive. And then I think Tier 4, A Good Time, this one, has the standouts. It's funny, I actually had Guardians in Tier 4 until I got through all the films leading up to it. And then I could appreciate more where it was coming from and how out of left field it really was. So, there have been some adjustments based on further information as I've been watching more and more films. Tier 2, that should come as no surprise to any of you who watched my reaction to Captain America: The Winter Soldier, but I was really surprised at how good it was. And, Matrix is pretty legendary and in a world all its own, I think literally and figuratively. So without further ado, here is Tier 1. And oddly enough, it contains 3 of the original 5 films I reacted to on this channel. So it looks like I selected well originally. And the online ratings of what other people thought also reflect what I would like myself. Iron Man is kind of the OG, so I have to respect that one. I love me some Robert Downey Jr., and it's got it all, like the snappy dialogue, the technology, the story, and all that. Deadpool, of course, is our leading rated R film, which you'll know I like that a lot. Lots of snark and sarcasm and inside jokes, and it's very sexy. Black Panther just has such a great story. It's absolutely beautiful scenery and costumes, great fleshed out characters. It's so wonderfully acted. It's still up there for me, even though I don't yet know all the films that lead up to it. I think I'm probably going to appreciate it more, knowing I'm glad that I know we're going to see Black Panther in some of the upcoming movies before we get to the full Black Panther movie, and I'm excited about that. And then, of course, the most badass villain with a whip, Catwoman. She brings Batman Returns into the top tier for me. It's sexy, it's funny, it's weird, it's gross. I think I might be showing my age on this one, but it's a total classic, and it's a great throwback for this Gen Xer. So that's my tier rankings so far. I'll put an Imager link downstairs if you want to take a longer look at it. I think that might work. Feel free to try to convince me to change my ranking. It probably won't work, but I won't hate you for trying. And if you watched this far, I really just want to thank you and everyone who has watched, subscribed, given me their feedback, sent in recommendations and informations and inside details. I love all of that stuff. I really appreciate you all as I'm trying to grow my channel, and I'm looking forward to continuing this journey with you. I'm going to be posting next a few random kind of superhero action movie reactions for the next week or so, just to take a little break, but don't worry, we'll get back to the MCU. I just want to make sure I get in as many Spider-Man movies in there as I can before I start watching, because I understand that's pretty important to Phase 3, and maybe we'll watch Venom. I don't know. We'll see how much time I have. But in the meantime, let me know what I should be watching. Thanks for watching, and have a good night.